Hi everyone, Jason here at the Whittier Public Library with our newest STEAM-powered science take and make science activity. Today, our topic is a paper cut planetarium. So we are going to make a little mini planetarium that you can use at home in a paper cup. And we're also going to learn a little bit about constellations and about planetariums. So let's get started. Hopefully, you already picked up one of our kits from the library, in which case you have just about everything you need. There's a couple of supplies you'll need from home that I'll tell you about. If not, I'm going to show you everything you need right now. So you will need a small paper cup or two. Paper will generally work better than plastic, so I would recommend a paper cup. You're going to need some of these constellation patterns, which you will have in your kit or you can download online. And I'll give you a link later where you can find these. You're going to need a push pin. You'll notice I've put this one inside a little bit of eraser so you won't poke yourself. You will need a flashlight. Make sure you have a flashlight with only one single bulb. If you have one of those ones with a whole bunch of LED bulbs, it won't work. So you need one single bulb like this one here. You'll need some batteries, of course, for the flashlight. I've also included just a couple little pieces of paper in case you want to decorate your planetarium a little bit. You'll need some scissors, which you will have to provide yourself, and you will need either some tape or you will need a glue stick, which you will need to provide yourself. Actually, a glue stick is a little bit better. I didn't happen to have one here, so I'm using tape. Okay, so let's get started on our paper cup planetarium. This is a pretty simple activity today. I'll show you how to do it. So what we're going to do first is we are going to take our sheet of constellation patterns, and we're going to pick out the one we want to use. I'm going to go ahead and go with Scorpius. You can choose whichever one you want. We're going to cut out that circle. So I'm going to cut it out. You don't need to be super precise with your cutting. Just make sure you don't cut into the center very much. So we're going to cut around that circle. Okay, and there's Scorpius. Now we're going to put that on the bottom of one of our cups, just like that. Next, we're going to take our tape. If you have glue, use your glue. I would recommend a glue stick, actually. I just didn't happen to have one with me, so I unfortunately had to use tape. So I'm going to take a piece of tape, tape down that side. If you have a glue stick, just glue it to the bottom. Another piece of tape. Pop it on that other side. We now have Scorpius taped down. Next, we're going to take our push pin and take it out of our little piece of eraser. Make sure you're careful with this because it is sharp and pointy. You could poke yourself. So what we're going to do is everywhere you see a little black dot, we're going to poke right through that. The black dot, poke, poke, right through each one of those. You notice it makes kind of a funny sound sometimes when it pops back out. Make sure you get every one of those black dots because that is going to be the pattern of your constellation. All right, and now, believe it or not, our paper cup planetarium is all finished. However, if you want to, you could decorate the sides with some stars. That's what I give you this white and yellow paper for. If you want to cut out some stars, planets, comets, anything like that, and decorate the side, please feel free to do so. I just left mine plain black. Next thing we're going to do is, let's put our push pin back in our eraser so we don't accidentally poke ourselves. That's pretty important. Black. Okay, so the next step is we need to find a very dark place. So for example, a closet, a dark room at night, someplace like that, someplace with no windows and not much light where you can turn out the lights. That's what you're going to need. If you haven't already, you're going to put your batteries into your flashlight. Close it back up. Let's make sure that works. Turn that on. Yeah, looks good. The flashlight's on. Now, we're going to take our cup. We're going to put our flashlight inside our cup. It may not have to be straight up. You'll have to adjust it a little bit when you try this to figure out exactly the right angle. It worked best for me when I put it at an angle against the side, maybe about like that. That seemed to work best. You're going to point the cup, the bottom of the cup with the constellation on it. You're going to point that toward the ceiling. Doesn't need to be very high, doesn't need to be real close to the ceiling. You can just hold it up maybe at shoulder or head height. Put that flashlight inside, you're going to turn it on, and you should see the pattern of the constellation projected onto the ceiling. Okay, so now it's dark and we found a nice dark room. And so now we're going to try and test our planetarium in a cup and see if we can project the constellation Scorpius onto the ceiling. So let's go ahead and turn the lights out right now. Okay, I'm going to put my flashlight inside the cup and I'm going to turn it on, and oh, you can see it looks like a bit of a mess right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to angle it against the side. I'm going to get it just right. Oh, and there it is. There's the stars of the constellation Scorpius projected onto the ceiling. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, now let's talk a little bit about constellations. Constellations are groupings of stars in the sky that ancient people picked out to represent things from their traditional stories. So they might represent a god, a hero, a monster, an animal. Now, many different cultures all around the world have created constellations, but the ones we know best today generally come from either Greek or Roman traditions and from a couple thousand years ago or more. If you look at the constellations throughout the night, you will see that they move across the sky as the Earth rotates, just the same way the sun and the moon do. You will also notice different times of the year, different constellations will be visible as the Earth moves around the sun. Constellations don't really necessarily have any scientific meaning. In fact, the stars in a constellation are probably not very close to each other because some of them may be much further from the Earth than others. In fact, they're probably trillions of miles apart, but they can still be a fun and useful way to keep track of the stars and learn their locations in the sky. They can also be used to help you find your way at night. If you know where the constellations are, those can help you figure out where you are on Earth, and they can help you figure out which direction you're going. So constellations are very useful. Now let's talk about planetariums. Have you ever visited a planetarium? If not, it's a lot of fun. You should try it sometime. A planetarium is a special type of theater with seats that are reclined or lean back and a domed ceiling. And an image of the night sky is projected onto that dome ceiling. And there's usually a show that will teach you some things about astronomy, stars and planets and things like that. Now, in older planetariums, the projector is actually sort of a high-tech version of what we've created here today. It's a dome shape with a lot of little tiny holes poked in it. And then there's a light inside that dome that shines through the holes and creates the images of the stars on the dome ceiling. Newer planetariums have digital projectors that are a little bit more like a modern movie projector. There are quite a few planetariums you can actually visit around the Los Angeles area, including the most famous one at the Griffith Observatory. So if you ever get a chance to visit a planetarium, I highly recommend it. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about the topics we've talked about today, please make sure to stop by the Whittier Public Library and borrow some books. We have some examples right over here. For example, you could check out a book and learn a little bit more about constellations. Here's a book about stars if you wanted to learn some more about stars and astronomy. We even have books about light and how it works. This book is a particularly interesting one right here. It's called The Heavenly Zoo. And this will tell you stories behind the constellations from different cultures all around the world. Because as I mentioned, many different cultures have created constellations. You might even just want to read a fun story about a planetarium. This is about Fancy Nancy and her attempt to go to a planetarium to see a show. So, we hope to see you soon at the Whittier Public Library. Thanks for joining us today, and please keep an eye out for our next steam-powered science activity, which should be coming soon.